Hello, just this is the second of a, I don't know how long this is going to end up being, but I'm interviewing event professionals and just finding out where they're at and what their ideas are for the future and what the silver lining is to all of this. And today I am joined by a very dear friend of mine. We work together at the Edmonton Fringe together, and we've been colleagues for a number of years. And
Over 10.
I know, right? Has it been that long? Oh my God.
Yeah.
So I'd like to introduce Samantha Kelch at the SK Events. And hello, Sam.
Hi, Thomas.
Hello,
Tom. I just
Thomas.
called you Tom. Hi. How
Hi,
are you?
I'm doing really well. It's funny. One of the silver linings for me is I've been in touch with people I haven't talked to in over 20 years, and people who used to call me Tom, which is very interesting to then introduce them to people that call me Thomas.
Yeah.
Sorry, but it's
Well,
nice to
it's
have
funny.
memories. Yeah.
Well, it's funny. It just rolled off my tongue. I'm like, I don't think I've ever called you Tom before. You're always Thomas to me, or High Five Entertainment.
Yeah,
Our
those
fake
are my,
company, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
right. Or I'm wearing my Tommy hat, so whatever you want to call me.
Exactly. Just don't call me late for dinner, right?
That's always.
Always.
If you could just talk a little bit about what you do, who you are, and what you do.
Oh,
That'd be
I'd
great.
love to. It's fun, actually. It's been fun to be able to do this and connect with you. I've been really looking forward to actually just, going over my other life, if you will. And I call it that because I've been at home with my 3-year-old for the last 2 months straight. And if I thought events were tiring, looking after a 3-year-old is exhausting. She's got her own mind, her own opinions, and of course she comes by it naturally. So this is nice to delve into my original baby. I started SK Events officially in 2013. So this is, I'm moving into, as of March of this year, into my 8th year being on my own as an independent contractor in the city of Edmonton and Sherwood Park in northern Alberta. And I originally started my business looking at personal events and thought I'd, go into that wedding social market. As much fun as that has been, I found my niche is not-for-profit fundraising and charitable events. And so the last 6 years strong have been golf tournaments, galas, different marketing campaigns for different real estate agents, which I guess is not-for-profit, but unique celebrations, if you will. We work a lot with CPA, for example, the chartered accountants, and doing their graduation ceremony. So it's an eclectic mix for sure, but we focus on the personal touch and the research side of it that we can bring because I'm technically not a fundraiser, but you learn by extension. And my time at the Fringe, I mean, we did 3 years together at the festival there, and that in and of itself is a not-for-profit. Were we charitable status? I can't remember if it's a charity.
Yeah, it was a
I think it
not-for-profit.
would be, right?
It's
Yeah.
still not-for-profit. Yeah.
And so, but my goal is to make, and this sounds crass to say make as much money. So let's say to raise as much money for the charities that we have the honor to work with. And so we're producing events that are budget conscious, but also understanding that you have to spend a little money to make a little money. So we have some really cool clients that allow us that flexibility and that creativity to bring something new to our industry within Edmonton. Not saying it hasn't been done before, but what's going to work for the clientele and the client and that sort of thing. So yeah, I've been focusing on not-for-profit and a lot of fundraising and just finding those unique moments to produce and keep people coming back too, because we want to keep building the events and get them bigger and stronger every year. So
Right, and then of course there is a season to these events. I mean, in Edmonton, it's weather dependent, and obviously we get
weather dependent, yes.
4 months.
Well, especially for golf tournaments. And I've been very lucky. I learned from the best, Kate Gallagher with KMG Events, who was a connection to me through my Boston Pizza time when I was working with the Northern Alberta franchisees. And she was amazing. And she's focused a lot on fundraising, which is, I think, what really got me into I want to do that. I want to do that. Nothing against social events or weddings because they're very important, and we still, is dabble the right word? We do the odd few on, friends and colleagues that look for us or other clients say, hey, I have a friend getting married. But I took a look at that and I thought, okay, that's how I want to be able to give back and still make an impact on so many deserving charities in this city. And anyway, Kate's big focus was golf tournaments. And I thought, oh, okay. So I did a full summer with her, and I thought, all right, golf tournaments are really cool. You're right. You have a very limited window on when you can do them, because golf is essentially June till like the second week of September, and very weather dependent. I mean, in my 8 years of doing golf tournaments, I've probably every year we've had something happen, whether it was torrential rain. 2 years ago, we had snow. This year we have a pandemic. So, bring it on.
Well, this is a great transition. For us anyways, here in Alberta, in Edmonton, it was mid-March when we went into a lockdown scenario. And I'm sure you had events in the work, in planning, and of course, we're actually heading into phase 1, which will be interesting to hear if this affects you in any way. But
Yeah.
how did that impact you initially when that happened? What was that experience like?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for anybody watching this, they don't know me, but you know me. I'm super optimistic, and almost to a fault, because I'd like to see that silver lining. We're gonna get through this, and there's always gonna be key learnings, and it may not go the way we had thought it would go, but in the end, it all works out to how it should be, right? When the news first hit, it was actually quite interesting, because it was Thursday, March 12th. And the only reason I remember that is I decided to take Maddie out, to my daughter, for a mommy-daughter day. I try to do that, whenever I can. And, when you work by yourself, it's great. And then that whole, okay, no more than 250 people gathering. And, Dr. Hinshaw had said, okay, this is serious, guys. We really need to approach it. And so then she didn't go to daycare the next day. And so, it kind of kept moving. And the emails, oh my goodness, the emails that came through, like, during this unprecedented time, like everybody was sending emails and trying to go through all that and get information to our clients, and then wade through why am I getting something from Michael's, like random emails and stores that are sending me stuff that I haven't shopped at in years, right? And so a lot of it at first was hesitation. People are like, okay, we're gonna get through this. It's still March. A lot of our events, and I look off to the side, you can't see it, I have my big whiteboard that was full this year. 2020 was going to be an amazing year for my company. And I mean, every year is amazing, but we were so busy. I was going to be hiring someone full time to work with me. And it was very exciting. And then slowly but surely, as we started getting further into this lockdown, and I think people really started to realize this is serious. Like, this is a crazy virus that no one's seen before. It's not a hoax. It's not some crazy government thing. Like, we do need to take this serious. And, she went, Dr. Hinshaw, who I have mad respect for, she has handled this so amazing. We'd gone from 250 people gathering to, didn't it go straight to 50? Like, I don't even think we skipped like 100, or maybe it was 250, 150, and then down to 15, like the steps that they went through. Yeah. As soon as we started seeing that fall off, a lot of the big conversations and planning for, even to some of our events into January, February of next year, I've said, okay, we're just going to hold off. But as we got further into that lockdown, about 4 or 5 weeks, so this would have been the beginning of April, is when I started to wipe stuff off the whiteboard. Okay, we're canceling. Tough conversations to have, but I think personally for me, it just felt, it's hard to, it felt right. But that doesn't sound right. I think the best way I could say it is one of the emails that we put through, that we crafted for our tournament with Boston Pizza. This would have been its 28th annual. It's raised over $3.1 million for Alberta Cancer Foundation. Yes, Make-A-Wish. Like, they've done some incredible work. And so for us to say, yeah, you know what, it's the right thing to do. There's been a lot of talk of, with a heavy heart, we cancel. And, I don't want to make fun of that or make light of it, because it is with a heavy heart, because we're disappointed. We wanted to do that. We look forward to these events and these chances to get together, and it's a reunion of sense, but it's with a willing heart. We're doing it. It's not just for ourselves. And so I think once we've shifted that communication, that mindset, that it's like, it's not woe is me, it's all right, okay, cool, that's what the universe has planned. Yeah. That's fine. You know what, next year is going to be unbelievable, and we'll just move forward and just keep that line of communication open. And I think we've seen a lot of that with our clients, and even the golfers and sponsors and stakeholders. Like, yeah, you know what, that's great, we would have been there, but we're happy you made that decision. and we support you either way. So to say it was a bomb that went off is an understatement, because I didn't have a lot of time to digest it. You just had to roll with it. And then of course I had my daughter, because my husband works full time too, so it was just this all of a sudden into this massive juggle, which as an event planner, that's what we do. So you just onwards and upwards, right?
It's interesting that you would say that. So your clients were, for the most part, they were open to how fluid the situation
Hmm.
was. Obviously, understanding that that this year, obviously,
Might
is
be a
not going
complete
to be happening,
wash.
right?
Yeah.
So a lot of people in our industry have pivoted. Obviously, online and live streaming is a big part of that that pivot. Being
Hmm.
an entertainer, obviously, that's a big part of my business transition. But have clients, not-for-profit clients, been interested in doing online fundraising? And
Hmm.
would that include you?
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting how those conversations have shifted. I think there's been, not that anyone wasn't hesitant about virtual fundraising before. Like when we take a look at one of our clients, the Sturgeon Community Hospital Foundation, we did Givergy this year, which is not a new platform for online auctions, but something they hadn't used before. And pre-pandemic, they were incredibly surprised and hopeful at how much money, like they gangbusters, they did more than they've ever raised. And so something like that has been inching ever so closer to all of our different platforms,
Right.
or clients, I should say, and including those different elements. Now, of course, during/ post pandemic, we're going to have to see how that's going to play into it too, in the sense that is a vaccine rolled out, how many people can gather together, do we want to go full virtual, do we want to go half and half?
Mhm.
But I think at the very beginning, and one example, we're working with the client, we were supposed to have an event at the end of May, and actually Sarah Mitchell from VIP Events was assisting us on that. And we started talking to the client. We said, we've got a really unique opportunity that, because it's only the second year, I don't think it's the right idea to cancel, because that's always the last resort, but how can we move forward in a new way? So, do we want to postpone to later in the fall, or do we want to go virtual? And when we built the program, I mean, obviously the event was going to look a little different. We were going Vegas, we had Hush Girls, we had a whole bunch of different stuff that was going to be playing out with this casino. Well, we can't have a casino, but how can we bring that platform to them virtually? And I had recently attended a lot of Danny Michel. He's a CBC artist, a Canadian folk singer. He does Sunday concerts, and I thought, well, let's see how this works on Zoom, and this amazing online platform that we all use, and it worked amazingly well. And so, because people have started to try it beforehand, the client was like, you know what, yeah, let's give it a shot. And so they had conversations with their sponsors, and they were all gung-ho for it. And then the board got involved, and they said, well, I don't know how we're comfortable with asking people for money right now, because it's still too soon, or it's the conversation pieces that we've had, there's affected populations, and I don't want to say unaffected populations, but that's essentially the terminology they use. Right now, it's okay to fundraise for affected populations, meaning hospitals, hospital foundations, stuff that's frontline for COVID.
Mhm.
Whereas the organization we were working with, they were directly affected by COVID, but they primarily focus on early childhood development for children with disabilities. So, not saying that it's not important, it absolutely it is, but it's sort of second tier. I don't know how to put that politely, but
No,
it's not second tier,
it's
but they're
priority,
not affected. Yeah,
right?
exactly. They're not a frontline for COVID. And so they decided, no, you know what, we're not comfortable with asking for money and doing that. We're just going to call it a day, and we'll gear up for next year. So
Okay.
anyway, long story short, I think there's some hesitation for sure, because a lot of people are like, yeah, we still need to ask for money, especially for our charities, because that's, I mean, their bottom line is fundraising, and that's,
Mhm.
they still have to move forward and raise money for these different causes. But I think we'll start to see a shift of that as people start to realize, okay, we are going to come out of this, we are going to start back to work, and people are going to keep moving forward. But it'll just depend on what people are comfortable with. So.
And this affects you as an event planner in two ways. One, if a client is moving forward and they're conscious about priority,
Mhm.
that they would move it to a different style of campaign. And then the second part of that, as an um, special event producer, providing this service, how do
Mhm.
you make a client feel confident that you're providing a service that you could switch it into a broadcast, or be involved somehow in still reaching the constituents that would come to an event and spend money towards for a good cause, and obviously keeping you employed. I mean, that's the salient issue.
Yeah, and it's really interesting. There's twofold to this question, or two answers, I guess, to this question in a sense. And I'll ask focus on the last one about being employed and still being able to offer a service. It's been some really interesting conversations, and I'm first and foremost, I am super blessed to have the clients that I work with, and I'm sure every event professional would tell you that they're like family to you. And a lot of my clients have been around I've only been in business for 8 years, but I've been working with some of them for 10. You know what I mean? They've been around and they stick it out, and because we provide a great service, and so they essentially become family, and so those conversations become easier. But then at the same time, I want to be able to give back because I work with a lot of charities, but I also have a bottom line. So it's a really tricky situation. I'm very fortunate in that I do have a fully employed, like full-time partner, and, our expenses are covered. So I have a little bit more flexibility on that. And from guidance from other event planners, that conversation was first out, like, what do we do? How do we mitigate? Because there's so many unknowns. Like, I still want to be able to be on the other side of this and be able to provide this service and grow. And so with all those uncertainties and that kind of scary, like, oh my God, what do we do? This whole panic moment. I love our industry. I love Edmonton. I really love Edmonton, and how everybody, has come together in, whether we're event professionals or entertainment or producers or lighting, like tech, whatever side that is. Those conversations are like, cool, we're all on the same team. It's not you versus me. How can we help each other? And so one of the pieces that I've been following along is trying to jump on webinar after webinar after webinar. But these conversations are so frank and so open and so raw. Everybody's like, okay, what are the best key steps for us to move forward, whether that's with our own jobs, companies, etc. But how can we best help our clients? Because none of us know what to do. We've never lived through a pandemic,
Right.
In Canada. This is the first, you look amazing if you were still living around 1918 for 100, right? But none of us have been around that. We just know the history side of it, that we're going to come out the other end, and we have to abide by guidelines set out by the CMO, the Chief Medical Office, the Public Health Office of Canada, etc. So trying to come full circle back to the original point that you guys had, but essentially I don't have that information for my clients, and because I don't, I'm reading and learning and trying to see what other people are doing, because we are starting to see some rollouts of that. And people, Junior Achievement was the first virtual gala here in the city that they jumped out on May 1st. How did that work for them? How did they learn? And how can we share that with our clients that are moving forward? How can we help our clients feel safe about moving forward? That was a big piece last week on some conversations that we had, that, at the end of the day, it's just communicating, okay, what are our steps that we can do and mitigate those concerns? Liability being another one. Of course, it was an American thing. So they're like, what if someone sues us if I got COVID at your event? And of course you're like, oh my God, I never thought of that. And so just trying to get ahead of as much as just like any event, this is just another element that we're bringing in, that we're now going to have to manage and make sure that we're as on top of it and up to speed as we possibly can be. And so, as an example, and just to wrap that part up, I'm pointing to whiteboard, you can't see. I have an event in September that's a conference for 30 people. It's right. Super small, but it's over the 15-person limit. And so we haven't canceled it because we can bring in virtual, because they're across Canada. But same thing, we're setting out those guidelines and how we can help everybody feel safe, and just, check the temperature. Pardon the pun, like, how are you feeling? Do you want to come out? Like, what's going to work for you guys? So it's just keeping conversations open, and then, just staying up to speed. So.
Right. And it's also that element of education for everybody. Yeah. Everybody's learning, as you're saying. So it's like, which then brings us to the last part of the conversation here is silver lining. So either personal and or business wise, do you see a silver lining to this experience, living in a pandemic, being an event professional?
It's so funny, and sorry, I do talk a lot, so this might be a long-winded little piece there too.
We're all learning.
Exactly. Well, and I'm like, I just miss you. Silver lining, 100%. I think, on the humor side of it, there's been a few things like Steve Campbell. He's a huge event planner down in the States, in Texas, and, did events for Oprah and all this kind of stuff. He was on the webinar last week, and I started following him on Instagram and, just seeing some of the things because he's got that humor thing. And he'd said something of like, out of everything that's going to happen in this pandemic, can we just get rid of the buffet line? Like, can we just be done with buffets? All the kitschy stuff from the 90s that we used to have. And he's like, maybe it's time. And now they're going to clean washrooms more. Like, this is a win-win, right? So, small little things like that will adapt, and, things will change, and it'll just become the new normal, right?
Sure.
But yeah, silver lining, I can't say for certain, where I'll be in 1 year or 5 years from now. I just know that I'll be able to continue on because I've got a great family, and whether I'm here on my own leading or supporting other event planners in the city, I know that that's what I was meant to do. So I know I'll be here back, whatever that looks like. But on a personal level, and I think this is really unique, is that having Maddie, so she literally just turned 3 2 weeks ago, and she is a spitfire. And I've always lamented not having enough time with her because she was full-time daycare. And it's really interesting too, because as much as I'm staying up to speed on events and learning, but I'm also learning to let go and appreciate this time with her, because I mean, in my 20s, I was high strung, and I think you have to be as a type A, or, in the event industry, but realizing that nothing's forever, and that could be good and bad. This pandemic is going to pass us. We're going to learn, and we're going to move forward. On the sad part of it, Maddie's 3, she's going to be 5 in school before I know it. And I've always said to Jeff, my husband, that I'm like, you know what? If I wonder if I never took a mat leave. And not that this is what I saw as my mat leave. Like, I didn't say, oh, I wish there was a pandemic, but I'm like, always those moments of, I wonder if I ever had a moment to actually slow down and appreciate the small things in life. And I say small, like they're not insignificant. They're moments in Maddie's growth that, she's learning, and she's learning to count German, something that I've actually had time to sit down and work with her on. And, and even though we're not in person with family, and we're connecting on such a different level, that to me, that's a silver lining, and something that I would never, ever be able to have had this not come around. So I would not wish a pandemic on anyone, but I'm thankful for this time. And like you and I feel like we saw each other in January for an event, but, to actually get down to brass tacks and just talk and connect with people on a different level. To me, that's the silver lining, because I know we're going to get past this. It might take another year.
Right.
And I don't know when the event industry is going to bounce back. There's thinking, by 2022, that we'll start to see things turn around and actually get back to pre-pandemic levels, which seems like a lifetime away. But as you know, in events, things it'll be like this, right?
Exactly. Got to be fluid in the business, and obviously, well said in the personal. I think that's really it's important, to take the time. And it took a pandemic for us to slow down just a little bit. We actually get a summer, so
right. And that's unheard of. I read a book last week. Like, that's just, I know that seems silly, but it's
not at
yeah.
all.
I think mental health, I mean, as much as it sucks to be constantly at home, and we're doing our part, and in whatever that looks like to us, but to have those moments and just slow it down and plant a garden and just see what happens, I think we're going to be stronger on the other end, because that self-care side of it came in first. So
well, listen, I want to thank you so much for doing this. This is very insightful, and I know that it continues and furthers the conversation. So thank you. Fantastic.